Hey everyone, Mr. Sugeno here. In today's video, we're going to look at an age-old debate between pad versus stick. Let's get started.
Alright, you can see here that I have listed the Fightpad and controller pros and the Fightstick and arcade stick pros. First and foremost, for the Fightpad, it is very good with quick motions. The D-pad has a very short travel distance, which means you can bang out moves very quickly. Fightpads and controllers are also very compact. They're easy to move around, they're easy to store, they're easy to take with you to different events. They are inexpensive. Controllers in Canada generally go anywhere from $50 to maybe $80 or $90 depending on the controller, which is very inexpensive when compared to a fight stick. This means they're also inexpensive to replace if something were to go wrong. Lastly, controllers are multi-purpose, which means you can use them for other games other than fighting games. For example, if you wanted to play Rocket League or Halo or anything like that. I'm just using a picture of the DualShock for an example, but it goes with basically any console controller. You can use it for other games. For fight stick or arcade stick pros, first and foremost, attacks are very quick. You can hit the buttons a lot quicker than you can on a fight pad because you have your whole hand and all your fingers just to tap the buttons, and the buttons generally are designed for easy, quick inputs. Fight sticks are also very precise. So the actual joystick, in the way it's designed, allows for very easy distinction between up, down, left, and right. Whereas the fight pad has generally quicker inputs, the fight stick does generally have slower inputs due to the travel distance, but that travel distance between directions also equates for extra precision. Fight sticks are also repairable. So if a button is to break, or if your joystick is to break, you can generally, for most of them, open them up and replace the part. Along those same lines, fight sticks and arcade sticks are very customizable. This isn't just from a design perspective, but also from a functionality perspective. There are different types of joysticks, there are different pieces that go in each individual joysticks. There are different types of buttons. So you can customize it to your liking. And that is in functionality form. You can also customize it in appearance. I put the multi-system compatibility underneath the fight stick as opposed to the fight pad. I do understand that some fight pads have the ability to switch between different consoles, for example PS4 or PS3. But some fight sticks have the ability to switch not only between the PS4, PS3, PC, but also onto the Nintendo Switch as well. It is done by the Brook Universal Fighting Board, and there are many different systems it can switch in between. Lastly, I put familiarity under the Fight Stick and Arcade Stick Pro. This is not because people are familiar with arcades, but more or less because fight sticks are generally the same no matter what system you use. Controllers are generally proprietary to their system. For example, a PS4 controller is vastly different from an Xbox 360 or an Xbox One controller. I do understand the DualShock 1, 2, 3, and 4 controllers are generally similar. At the same time, if you're switching between systems, they vary greatly. Whereas with a fight stick, if you're switching between a fight stick used on an Xbox One, a fight stick used on a PS4, a fight stick that is attached to an arcade cabinet, they generally feel extremely similar. Alright, so fight pad cons and fight stick cons. So the fight pad cons are generally slower attacks. This is because the face buttons, usually, whether you're using a claw style or using your thumb, the attacks come out a little slower for the average person. I do understand that there are exceptions to this, especially at the pro level, but for the general user, slower attacks usually holds true. The D-pad is much more imprecise than the fight stick's joystick. Controllers are notoriously easy to break. Their durability comes into question, especially with fighting games. Fighting games are very hard on controllers, especially with the D-pad, especially with the repeated button smashing, especially in high-tension matches where a lot of people press considerably harder on the buttons, myself included, than you intend to. Controllers, especially the ones nowadays, are not made like they used to. Speaking of which, if I used my Super Nintendo controller, it is now over 20 years old, so durability also plays a factor. Controllers are also different from each system. I already touched on this, but for example, a DualShock 4 is extremely different than an Xbox 360 controller. And lastly, ergonomics. Controllers are considerably less ergonomic than a fight stick in a general sense. There are exceptions to this. For example, if you have wrist issues or if you find a controller more comfortable. But ergonomics have generally not been a controller's strong suit, especially older controllers. Take a look at, for example, the Super Nintendo controller or the Dreamcast controller or the original Xbox controller. Ergonomics has generally not been a winning point. And lastly, we'll go over the fight stick or arcade stick cons. Fight sticks are generally considerably more expensive than a controller. They're expensive in general. A fight stick goes for upwards of $300, upwards of even $400 for some of them in Canada. And the less expensive ones, for example, the Hori Fighting Stick Mini, those go for about $50 or $60 in Canada. But as a whole, especially once you get into customization, fight sticks are considerably more expensive than controllers. Slower motions. As I said before, the joystick itself, going from A to B, left to right, up to down, whatever you want to call it, is slower than a controller's D-pad. The range of motion is greater than a D-pad. The D-pad's a quick button press, whereas the controller with the joystick you have to tilt, which has a larger range of motion, which equals slower input than the controller. And the last point, fight sticks are bulky. If you don't have a lot of space to store one, this might be an issue. If you're bringing it to a tournament, it is also bulky. If you're bringing it through an airport, it's bulky. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, is personal preference. I've listed points for and against both the controller and the fight stick, and really each of these points mean different things to different people. For example, some people might value quick motions, some people might value precision, some people might value the cheaper cost of the fight pad, some people might value the customizability of the arcade stick. Honestly, it doesn't really matter as long as you're comfortable with it and as long as you're happy with it. I've just listed this out. Really, there is no clean-cut winner because it comes down to personal preference. That's all I've got for today. Please like and subscribe. Also, let me know which one you chose. Do you like a fight pad? Do you like a fight stick? I'm honestly interested to know your reasons why you choose one over the other, or if you choose both. Thank you, everyone. That's all I've got for today. Take care.